Maybe I have to go back in time to when I was a kid and tearing open presents under the tree. But that's another thing, Sheila. Nobody gives me anything anymore, right?
Oh, no, David. I'm sorry I asked about your pity party. You could have just said, things were great. I spent with the love of my life, the beautiful Lady Menzies, but no. Soliloquy on your your melancholy. By the way, it's National Humiliation Day.
Oh,
And that you just breezed right over that one, David Menzies. But we should get to the housekeeping. And Efron told us before we started that we have to run a very tight ship today, because we are testing out. This is the return to the live stream.
yes.
We did take a bit of a break from it because it was very taxing on all of us, including our behind the scenes production crew during the Trucker Commission. So we took a little break from it. We wanted to rethink it. We wanted to make sure that we were giving the viewers what they needed. And as it turns out, they really wanted us to return, because my email was flooded with people saying, like, where are you guys? Where did you go? We need you to come back. So we have come back. We're testing out 2 time slots, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern, although we were a little bit late today. Very sorry. But again, this is a return to something we haven't done in a very long time. And if the production team is cooperative, I'm happy to go a little long. Or 2 to 3 Eastern time. So those are the 2 time slots that we're sort of testing out. We'll shuffle things around and we'll see, and we'll let you know. If you are not signed up for our Rebel News emails yet, please do. Just go to rebelnews.com. Give us your email there. I think there's a pop-up box that allows us to get your email. And what that will do is we will send out emails when we go live, so that, you know, if you're expecting us on one of those days where it's 1 to 2 p.m., maybe that's our 2 to 3 p.m. day, and we'll just send an email and let you know when you can expect us. So let us know, email us, Sheila at rebelnews.com, or one of our info lines. Let us know, so we know what you prefer us to do, or if you have live stream ideas for us, we're open to those too. And over the break, we had some fun things happen on the website, particularly Cian Simoni. So Cian is our head of documentary filmmaking, and he's doing a great job. His second documentary, Ungovernable, which you can find at albertadocumentary.com, but you can also find it on our YouTube site also. It's out for free. So you can watch that there. It's a history of Alberta's separatism, Alberta sovereignty, sort of how we got to this place where so many Albertans are dissatisfied with Alberta, the confluence of circumstances that brought us here. And it proposes several different ways forward. So it's not particularly a sovereigntist documentary so much as it is a documentary about the current ethos of Albertans. So you can find that on our YouTube for free or at albertadocumentary.com. And please stay tuned, because we are working on several more documentaries. There's a reason we have a head of documentaries named Cian Simoni, and it's because we are constantly working on them in the background. We currently have 3 in the works. One about the Montreal police raid on our Airbnb last year. A little backstory to that. Our friend Yankee Pollock, he was out every night documenting the treatment, particularly of the Jewish community, and how the unscientific COVID curfew was specifically targeting them, because they go for prayers on Friday nights, and they couldn't be out on the streets basically after dark to attend church. So even if they limited capacity in synagogue, it didn't matter, because they couldn't physically get to the synagogue without getting not a quarantine ticket, a lockdown ticket. So Yankee went out every night documenting the treatment. He was called Media Juif, which is Jew media, by the cops there, in a show of solidarity with Yankee. And Yankee himself repeatedly got lockdown tickets for reporting, doing this, showing the world how the curfew is specifically targeting the Jewish community. So Yankee was getting tickets. He was being treated in an arguably anti-Semitic way. Our team went to show support. We rented an Airbnb houseboat as a satellite studio and it was raided by the police, and our people were detained, and we have a documentary coming out about that. I don't want to give too much of it away, but that was the backstory. We've got also a Trucker Commission feature piece of, the comings and goings of the Public Order Emergency Commission, interviews with the key participants, and then a Coots Blockaders feature from Sid Fizzard. So Sid and Cian were both at the original Coots blockade, but the story of the Coots blockade didn't just end after the blockade broke up. Things happened after, including court cases that are still ongoing. So Cian is also working to put all those together with our production team in the background, the videographers who are working on those. So stay tuned for those. There's plenty in the works. And even over the break, Cian and I were texting back and forth. Okay, well, I have the opening salvo already written for a documentary that I want to work on. And then Cian's like, hey, what about that other one that you said you were going to work on? So I think we have about 6 or 7 documentaries floating around in Cian's brain and mine that we want to work on through the coming year. So lots happening at Rebel News.
And by the way, Sheila, I must say, with we're going to have some really wonderful interviews. You're going to see at times some anger, some rage even surface in some of those documentaries. Do you think Aaron O'Toole might be put off or offended by this? Do you think he might want to tweet out about the decline of civility, much like he did about the F. Trudeau flags just a few days ago? I mean, if we ever needed a reminder of what a lying loser Aaron O'Toole is, boy, did he provide it himself, didn't he?
Yeah, I started writing an article about that, and then I thought, no, I better turn this into a video because I don't think people will be able to fully soak in my disgust with Aaron O'Toole and his Substack article where he lectured people about the use of those F. Trudeau flags. Yeah. He said in 2023, he would like to see the F. Trudeau flags gone. Well, you know what happened in 2022, Aaron O'Toole? The F. Trudeau flag bearers got rid of you. And yet still doesn't understand why any of it happened. Doesn't understand that those people are the reason he's no longer the leader.
Well, indeed, Sheila, I mean, I'll be guest hosting for Ezra tonight, and that is the subject of my monologue. So I guess Aaron O'Toole is going to get a double barrel shot from you and me.
I'll just write something that is a little less smart.
No, he deserves it. But you're absolutely right with what you just said. He seems to be oblivious to the concept of cause and effect. Which is to say, if he got off his ricotta cheese candy ass and went down and talked to some of those flag bearers, maybe he's going to meet people that lost their business or lost their house or lost their job because they wouldn't take the COVID-19 jab and so on and so forth. And that is where the anger comes from. And given that this is a prime minister, how many ethics violations has he committed, Sheila? How many times has he worn blackface? Well, we don't know because even he doesn't know. How many times has this so-called feminist had difficulty with strong women or in one case even groped a female reporter? That would be Rose Knight, of course. And yet Aaron O'Toole is easy peasy with that, actual actions. And not to mention what he has done to us, whether we have to go to federal court to get into the leadership debates, or in my case, going back 13 months ago, actually being assaulted by his henchmen. Where was Aaron O'Toole's anger about that? And here's the question I have for you, Sheila. What is the audience? What is the intended audience for that brutal Substack piece that he supported? Is it indeed Trudeau Liberals, Jagmeet Singh, Doug Ford? I mean, I can't tell the difference these days, but that's a topic for another time. But who is he reaching out to? It's certainly not grassroots conservatives.
There's something about Aaron O'Toole where he can't learn anything about anything, about a single word. Because he wrote that article to appeal to the same people he campaigned to and lost. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to give these people one more try. Yep. I'm going to, even though I'm not the leader, I'm going to continue to appeal to these people who disregarded me and didn't choose me when they had the chance to choose me. That's who he wrote this article for. But think about the audacity. I know, Efron, I'm very sorry. You wanted to keep us on a tight timeline because we got a lot of clips. But he's tone policing people who lost everything. These are people who traveled across the country because they couldn't travel. They couldn't get on a plane. They couldn't get on a train. They couldn't go to school. They couldn't watch their kids' sports. They couldn't attend somebody's funeral, a wedding. They couldn't travel. They couldn't go to work without getting a medical treatment that they didn't want. And he's going to tone police them and say, you know what, would you mind losing everything just a little bit more politely from a guy who didn't lose a day's wage through the entire pandemic, who actually had to work less because he got to do everything over Zoom. He's going to tone police people who stood to lose everything if they didn't already. Give me a break. But I will tell you something. There's a reason Aaron O'Toole hates those flags, is because in 3 weeks, those flags were more effective opposition than anything he put up in the entire time that he was leader. That's why he would like to see them gone. They are a constant reminder to his own ineptitude. And that's got to sting a little bit.
You know what, Sheila? You nailed it there. I wish I thought of that point just the way you adroitly put it. You're 100% right. I mean, if anyone asks the question, well, tangibly speaking, what did the trucker convoy in Ottawa achieve? Well, I'll tell you what it achieved. A regime change in terms of who was the head of the Conservative Party of Canada. That's what it achieved. You know, Aaron O'Toole was hoisted on his own political petard simply because he could not give a straight answer as to whether he supported this freedom movement. Pathetic.
Well, look at what happened in Alberta. The Coots blockade moved up the timeline of the end of the vaccine mandate from the end of the month to 2 weeks from now to, tonight at midnight. That's what happened. And then, like, the trucker convoy, as it's rolling across the country west to east, it hits Lloydminster. And Scott Moe in Saskatchewan's like, you know what? We're dropping the Vax Pass. Don't worry about it. Don't convoy me, bro. That's how quickly they were changing things all across the country. Just because Justin Trudeau is a stubborn idiot doesn't mean that the trucker convoy didn't make effective change. And more than anything else, it stood as a point at which people no longer felt that they were being gaslighted by the government, because they saw, you know, like, you're alone. You're told not to talk to anybody. You're told to distance from each other. You don't go to those places where you have those conversations anymore because you're not allowed to. It's impolite to have those conversations at work. You can't go to a pub with your friends anymore. You can't go to church and have those conversations afterwards. Not allowed to have people over to your house. So you start to feel like, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm the only one that feels this way. But when you see these crowds and those people standing on the overpasses, you realize, no, I'm not crazy. The government is crazy. That's what the convoy did. Even if they didn't change all the policies they wanted to change, they provided some sort of moral catalyst for this country to say, no more. We're done wearing masks. We're done being locked down. And no matter what comes, you will never do that to us again. I think, and the government knows it. As much as they want to lock us all down again, and you know they do, they will never be able to do this to us again because of this.
You know, well said, Sheila. So at the end of the day, really what's driving Aaron O'Toole is that when he sees an F Trudeau flag, what he is reading, maybe subliminally, is F O'Toole. Because he's the one, you know, without getting graphic, that got screwed. But again, and this is par for the course, author of his own misfortune, isn't he? It's always his actions and inactions that bring him down. And again, the incredible thing is, as you alluded to, he never learns. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I would say to Aaron O'Toole, come on, let's be honest. Just cross the floor. That's your home. The Liberal Party of Canada, not the Conservatives.
I got to tell you, Andrew Scheer, for as milquetoast as he was, after he was done, he shut up and went away. And he didn't stick his nose back in anything. He, you know, like, he advocates for conservative stuff now, you know, like, he's against vaccine mandates, and thanks for showing up a little bit late, but at least you're here. But he's not scolding people. He's not tone policing people. He's doing his job as an MP. He went back to being an MP, and he's doing his job. He's fighting Bill C-11. He's, you know, he's doing things as an MP should do. But he's not out there scolding the conservative base and saying, vote for me, Toronto. Look, you're not even campaigning in Toronto, O'Toole. Like, what are you doing? You're just kneecapping it for the next guy. Anyway, we should move on.
Okay.
Because you monologue on this tonight, and I'm going to just write this up because, and feel free to take any of those ideas that I incorporate them. Fine,
I dare not.
Let's go to clip one. Justin Trudeau says in a year-end interview with CTV's, CTV journalist, as I was saying before we came on air, I'm literally not knowing the mainstream journalist anymore. I know Rosie Barton because, she's the CBC flagship journalist, and I know Ian Hannah-Mansing because his name is so fun to say, but I really don't know anybody else. So anyways, see, in an interview with CTV that Trudeau doesn't regret his comments. Of course he doesn't. Of course he doesn't. He doesn't regret his comments calling truckers and demonstrators people who wear tinfoil hats. Because when people fall into conspiracy theories, we need to call them out on that. Let's hear it.
I think in all my communications, in the frustration that Canadians were feeling, not just around that, but around the pandemic in general, there was a sense that Canadians really stepped up for each other. People went out and got vaccinated to a higher degree than just about any other country. And because of that, we actually had a better and safer pandemic than most people. Yes, we lost far too many people and it was heartbreaking, but we did better than most of the other countries that we can compare to. The fact that there were some people out there who were actively spreading harmful disinformation and misinformation, harmful lies that made people scared that the vaccine was more dangerous than the virus, and families sitting around the bedside of a loved one who was dying from COVID saying, oh my God, I wish he'd just taken the vaccine. I wish he hadn't listened to all those YouTube channels. Like, this is real. There were real tragedies, and there were people trying to gin that up and to expand the divisions and the fear and sense of conspiracy that were out there. We had, as a government, always and will always be extremely patient with people who are hesitant about getting a vaccine or whatever. But those people who were actively putting people's lives in danger by spreading falsehoods around science that will help and heal and save people and save our economy and save lives and save our institutions, those people, and they were a small minority within the larger anti-movements who were really vocal. I don't and I won't apologize for calling out people who were harming their fellow Canadians.
So tinfoil hats comment you don't regret?
Well, when someone believes that your government is trying to inject a vaccine in you to control your mind and track you, and there's a microchip in it, that's almost the definition of a government conspiracy theory, that you wear a tinfoil hat to protect your brain from brainwaves. When people fall into conspiracy theories, we need to call them out on that.
We know.
Yeah, Sheila,
I
he
don't
won't
worry about Justin Trudeau's brainwaves, by the way. Like, they're not going to make it into my head. But did you notice, sorry to cut you off, David, he takes the most fringe of the fringe of the fringe.
Yep.
And makes that and takes that and then taints the whole with it. Almost nobody thinks that the vaccine is a microchip to control your mind, and you're worried about the government controlling your mind now. Almost nobody thinks that. And anybody who thinks that was driven to think that way by a series of government lies, because the more the government lies to you, the less you're inclined to believe them. But literally nobody thinks that, or just like a rounding error, that probably the same amount of people who still watch the CBC, but nobody thinks that. People were against coercion to get a medical treatment we all know now doesn't work. And we all know now did absolutely damage some people. And we also know that the government, this government, through their own documents, did not test it for efficacy in stopping the spread of COVID. So when he stood up there and said, this vaccine stops the spread, there's no way he could have possibly known that, because the government didn't test for it. They only tested for safety, as in, does this thing have chemicals in it that can harm you? Does it have arsenic in it? Those sort of things. They tested it for safety to make sure it met certain safety standards, but never once was it tested for efficacy. And so he lied to people. He drove certain people into conspiracy theories. But when he talks about harmful misinformation, he was the guy spreading it with the biggest budget.
You're 100% right, Sheila. And, he speaks of harmful lies, and he said that those harmful lies, as a result, people's lives were in danger. Well, I would say quite the contrary. I would say because of federal government and provincial government policies, people's lives may not have been in danger, but their livelihoods were. As we were talking about with Aaron O'Toole, the number of people that lost their business, that lost their homes, that could not be part of the employment scheme again because of vaccine apartheid. That was as a direct result of government policy, which should never, now that we know in the 2020 hindsight, Sheila, should never have come to fruition in the first place. But the thing is, has this man in 7+ years of being Prime Minister, Sheila, has he ever genuinely apologized for anything? Anything?
No, nothing. Yeah. He has never done anything wrong, according to him. Like he's saying, about people who were around the bedside of dying people saying, I had wished they had gotten the vaccine. To do what? It didn't stop the spread. To do what? And what about the opioid deaths that surged because of CERB payments, loneliness, isolation? And the best thing his government said to do was do drugs over Zoom, do them over FaceTime, so that some unfortunate soul gets to witness you overdosing with the drugs you're putting into your body because the government gave you a CERB check instead of just letting you go to work. And I think it was Ontario, Alberta, and BC bore the brunt of those opioid deaths. I think it was Alberta and BC. We saw 91% of all the opioid deaths in the entire country. And it just doesn't matter to 17 Canadians per day in 2020, and it's worse now. That was in 2020. So now imagine you've locked people in their homes. You said they can't even have Christmas. It just drives people back to addictions they are currently beating. But that's okay, because Justin Trudeau has taken the statistical rounding error of people who think that Bill Gates is putting microchips in your blood, and use that to taint the whole of the anti-lockdown movement. What a gross man. We should move on to clip 2, though, because we're quickly losing track of time. We're on clip 2, and we're 43 minutes into the show. And
by the way, Sheila, I don't think you laid down the ground rules that you usually do in terms of, are we still on YouTube?
I'm so out of practice. I'm so out of practice. Yeah. We are on YouTube. We're completely demonetized on YouTube. So if you want to leave us what Rumble calls a Rumble rant, that's our monetized chat there, to support the work that we do completely willingly, because of course we'll never take any money from that liar Justin Trudeau, and YouTube is a censorship platform that discriminates against just people who think a little bit differently than the accepted narrative, which constantly changes, by the way. You can leave us a Rumble rant and we'll do our best to read it on air. Or on Odyssey, it's called a hyper chat. And there's a couple different ways that you can leave those, in the form of a fiat currency or in a cryptocurrency, which I don't understand, but it's called a library cryptocurrency. And we're happy to take those from you too. So that's how you help us keep the lights on here at Rebel News. And I'm so sorry that we're so late in the show and I didn't get around to saying those things. But anyways, now's your chance, guys. Let's move on to 2. It's from Trudeau. And he's reflecting on the use of the never before used wartime law, the Emergencies Act, to basically stomp all over the rights of peaceful protesters. And this is with CBC's Rosie Barton. And I don't know if they are having a lover's quarrel or what's going on over here, if she is not happy with the Christmas card he gave her or what. She was exceptionally hard on him, and maybe I shouldn't be as hard as I am on her, but she is still a government journalist, so she does deserve ire.
You know, Sheila, you read into it the same way I did. I was watching that clip and I thought, oh my goodness, the honeymoon is over. The bloom is off the rose, because I went, this isn't the same Miss Barton that used to fawn over the Prime Minister and ask for selfies. Like, what happened? Maybe you're right. Maybe Justin Trudeau bought her a Dollarama Christmas card instead of one of those highfalutin ones at the gift shop. So, but there's a bee in her bonnet. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the Emergencies Act inquiry. Do you think the country suffered any long-term damage because you invoked the Emergencies Act?
No, I don't think because I invoked, it was in there for 9 days. It did, in a very limited way, the job that it was brought in to do. Nobody got seriously injured. Nobody had any lasting effects from it, and it cleared the situation. And there's the kind of accountability and transparency that the Commission's providing. I think it's unfortunate that we had to use it. I didn't want to use the Emergencies Act, but when we got to that point, as I said in the Commission, it was one of the only tools left, and I think it was used properly. I think the reflection that we have to have going out of it is, how are so many people hurting so much that the anger against policy or against a particular government would bleed out into them not caring about impacting their fellow citizens in a terrible way, whether in Ottawa or at border crossings or across the country.
Well, a lot of that anger was about you. You would see the Trudeau flags, and I know you don't want to make it about you. I understand that, but it was directed towards you. And you often regularly say you're governing for all Canadians, but obviously some of those people on the streets did not feel that. So I wonder, how do you reach them? How do you explain to them that they may disagree with you, they may even hate you, but you have their interests at heart? What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, the decisions that we took collectively as a country, and I can't be the only one to take credit for it, but the decisions we took across provinces, across health authorities during the pandemic, we did things that benefited Canadians in general and kept them safe. Now, some will always disagree with the policies we put forward, but the intent that we had every step of the way was to keep people safe. And when I pushed back, what I was pushing back against was people who were deliberately spreading misinformation that was harming Canadians, pushing conspiracy theories that left families brokenhearted at the bedside of loved ones saying, I wish we had believed the government and he'd gotten vaccinated.
Oh, Sheila, I want
this one scenario, this one place where you're gathered around your dying grandma's bed, which you couldn't, by the way. You couldn't get in to see your dying grandma. So where is he coming up with this weird scenario? But he thinks that in people's last moments, you're clutching your dying grandma's hand, I guess through a tarp because you couldn't touch her. Yeah. And you're thinking, you know what? I wish Granny had believed Justin Trudeau. Imagine thinking that that's what Canadians were thinking. What an idiot he is.
A total lack of empathy. But Sheila, this just in, Aaron O'Toole has released a statement expressing deep regret for Rosemary Barton's aggressive line of questioning of our Prime Minister. So that's a true story I just made up. But anyway, you're right. Again, Sheila, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I really can't say with certainty that Justin Trudeau is a sociopath. But I think, Paul Bernardo could take lessons from this guy. He is just so insular. He feels that he has to apologize for nothing. He always feels he is on the right side of history. It's a little much, but you know what? I call him as I say him. So thankfully, he wasn't let off easy by Rosemary Barton. Maybe do you think we're going to see more of that in 2023?
I don't know. Is she getting ready to retire? What's happening there?
Well, if she is, there goes that Senate appointment.
The most confounding thing in all of this is that she's holding him to account after being the person who let him off the most for so long. It's very bizarre. Efron advises me to jump ahead to clip 4. So this is on one of my key issues that I focus on, and it's on the Liberals' latest expansion of their gun grab to be the single largest firearms prohibition in Canadian history. And he's being asked about Bill C-21, and he says that it's just misinformation that they're going to go after your center fire hunting rifles, which they literally are, if you read the legislation. legislation.
Jeez.
So, I mean, and actually, before Christmas, he admitted that there are going to be hunting rifles caught up in this. There's a clip of that. I think I might have included it in a written article. But anyways, he says, no. Don't believe the things I said before Christmas. Believe the things I said before the middle of December. Go back to that, Justin Trudeau. Don't believe the things I said before Christmas break. Anyway.
On gun control in French, asking if we were going to revoke or pull back C-21. The answer is no. C-21 is part of our commitment to Canadians to move forward on strengthening gun control in smart, responsible ways. We have frozen the market on handguns. It's now impossible to buy or sell a handgun in this country. We've moved forward on a ban on assault-style weapon that's been in place for 2 years, and we're making sure with C-21 that assault weapons will never be legal again in this country. The issue that's come up for a lot of people, and I suspect Eric, who sent in the question, is that there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation from the Conservative Party and from the gun lobby about us going after hunting rifles and shotguns. The reality is we're focused on banning the most dangerous weapons, those assault-style weapons that were designed to kill the largest number of people as quickly and efficiently as possible.
They're banning the SKS. They're banning the SKS, which is like a Soviet-era entry-level hunting rifle. It's a varmint rifle. You shoot a coyote with it, whatever. They're banning those. There's no possible way that they know where all of those are, because they've gone from unregistered to completely prohib, which means that you have to basically take the list of not just our PAL holders like me, but PAL holders, and take the list, go to every community, kick in the doors of those people and say, do you have an SKS in here because you're a criminal today? That's the only way they can enforce this. If people don't just willingly turn over their firearms, because they're just not gonna. So they're banning the SKS. So tell me how you're not banning hunting rifles. Somebody said it once, I think it was on Twitter, where they said, it's like somebody who's never even seen a car writing the rules of the road. That's how firearms owners feel. And I tell you, that is exactly how I feel. When they say we're not banning hunting rifles, you are banning center fire rifles and shotguns that do hold, that are capable of holding a 5-round magazine. That's almost every single hunting rifle and shotgun in this country, with the exception of a few duck shotguns. And that's not misinformation. That's just people saying, just so you realize what this means, that's what it means. When you've got the people that the government uses as experts in hunting and trapping legislation, the Fur Institute of Canada saying, we don't know how we can continue as an industry if you do this. And they are considered parliamentary experts on other things relating to the fur industry. When they're saying we can't go on, you're killing our industry. I'm inclined to listen to them and not Justin Trudeau sitting on a desk saying, no, believe us. Don't believe the experts, the people who use these things. Just believe me.
And Sheila, on the flip side, when it comes to crime and punishment, how the Liberals are laxing the rules, how you have gangbangers with illegal firearms being granted parole, bail. One of whom, by the way, was involved in the tragic killing of a 20-year-old police constable last week. It was somebody that should never have been out on bail in the first place. So we're going after Saskatchewan duck farmers. We're going to throw the book at those mean guys. But when it comes to the inner city gangbangers carrying out crime with illegal guns, we're going to lessen the penalties for that. How does this make sense in any world, Sheila?
Well, and where are my animal rights activist friends? So what am I going to do now? You going to have me poisoning coyotes? Is that what you want me to do? You want me to poison them? You want me to snare them? Maybe I can strangle them. What is less humane than a one-shot kill? But they're not speaking up. they don't care because they only care about the animals. They don't really care about people getting shot up in inner cities by gangsters, which this legislation doesn't target. It only targets people like me, which I think takes us to clip 5, because Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, is calling out the exact thing that you talked about, and that we've talked about on the show here before. That is, while Justin Trudeau is attacking firearms owners, the people who go through all the steps, and I know Lady Menzoid has recently done that. She's a very enthusiastic firearms license holder. Something
maybe we shouldn't broadcast that tidbit.
It's one of those lady things that we talk about. Anyway, like people like me and her, we're the target of this legislation. And while simultaneously the law and order liberals are reducing sentences, removing the mandatory minimum sentences for certain gang-related violent crimes, including firearms-related crimes, because of, get this, systemic racism. And I'm like, you are just wiping out the entire fur trapping industry, which is indigenous, which sounds a little bit to me like systemic racism, but whatever. We've got sympathy for the devil all of a sudden with our gangsters. Anyways, let's listen to Pierre Poilievre talk about this.
The details of the constable's murder are deeply troubling. Of course, this is the 5th police officer murdered since September, and it is part of a 32% increase in violent crime that has happened over the last 7 years, a 92% increase in gang-related murders. In this particular case, the accused was out on bail after having been allegedly committed similar violent offenses, including offenses with firearms and offenses against police officers. He, according to media reports, has previous convictions that are similarly violent. I regularly meet police officers across Canada who tell me that they often have to rearrest the same person in the same day, arresting a violent criminal in the morning and then again in the afternoon after they have been released on bail. These easy catch and release bail policies are found in Justin Trudeau's Bill C-75, a bill that makes it much easier to get bail, even in cases of repeat violent offenders and even in cases where the allegations against the newly arrested offender are serious and dangerous to the public. So Conservatives are calling on the Trudeau government to reverse its catch and release bail policy, to allow for prisoners who have been arrested after a long rap sheet of previous offenses for violent crimes, and we believe that they should stay in jail until their trial is complete and until it can be assured that and if convicted, that they should stay behind bars until such time as it can be assured to all of us that they are no longer a danger to the public. The Trudeau policy on crime has given us a 32% increase in violent crime, 92% increase in gang-related crime. And what has he done? Well, the Prime Minister, in response to all that, has decided to fearmonger by pledging to ban hunting rifles.
You know, Sheila, those figures, a 32% increase in violent crime and 92% increase in gang-related crime because of the Trudeau gun policies when it comes to crime. This is astonishing, both those numbers.
Yeah. Well, and there's one thing that they could do to put an end to a lot of the gun trafficking, the illegal guns and not my guns, is tighten up that border. Because the guns are coming across the border from the United States. They're ending up in the hands of gangs. And instead of doing something about that, they are coming after people like me and proposing an expensive buyback as though they owned these things in the first place. When you know what you could do for all that money? Just put up a little fence.
Yeah.
Put up a little fence border. Yeah, I mean that, but put some more cops there. But instead, they're going after people like me. And there's one thing that he mentioned there that I don't think we don't talk about enough here at Rebel News. And when I do talk about it, people are kind of shocked to hear it, because we hear about all the time in the United States about just the problems that no cash bail is causing.
Yeah.
You know, when they go before a judge and they say, and in Canada, a justice of the peace sometimes, and they say, you know, we're going to let you out with, you know, $1,000 bail, but no cash. So you just go.
Yeah.
You didn't have to put up any cash. And I've people know I have cops in my family. And they said just the absolute recidivism due to that is insane because there are no consequences. You don't have to find somebody to put up the cash bail for you, somebody who will make you be responsible because they don't want to lose the $1,000. You're just let out. It's like, out you go. And, you know, I've heard of cops getting in trouble in the courtroom saying, like, you know, where the judge will say like $50, but no cash bail. Am I frozen?
No, you're okay.
I've heard of cops getting in trouble in the courtroom when they say, the judge will say $50, but no cash. And the cops will scoff and say, why don't you just make it $1 million? Like, what does it matter? And then the cop, because we'll be picking them up later on this afternoon. And the cops get in trouble, but it's true. The police literally are trying to, I've been a critic of police during the pandemic. There are good ones that are trying to keep their communities safe and actually want to arrest real bad guys and not pastors. And they keep arresting the same bad guy over and over that's terrorizing their community because we have these crappy bail laws where somebody like Tamara Leach can be denied bail for weeks and weeks and weeks for a non-violent crime of being annoying in a public place, mischief. Yep. And she can be denied bail for political reasons, and gangsters and murderers can get out just like that.
100%. It makes no sense to me, Sheila. And as much as I'm against government spending, one government expenditure I'd like to see is for more judges to be hired, for more JPs to be hired, and to have, I guess, a streamlined, arm of the court system that is entirely dedicated to violent offenders. So instead of saying, you know what, the courts are backlogged, we've got no room in the jails, whatever the excuse is, no. We're going to end that when it comes to violent offenders. I'm not talking about somebody that shoplifted something, and that's wrong too. But I'm talking about somebody who's maimed or maybe even been involved in a murder of an individual getting back out on the street. I mean, how disheartening that must be for those good coppers out there who are trying to have safety in the community, and then to put them into really a revolving door, Sheila, right? They're arrested, they go before a JP, and they're out again. And we saw what fruit that bore last week with a 28-year-old OPP officer being killed in the line of duty by someone, when you read all the stories, should right now and forevermore be behind bars, yet somehow he was free too. That is despicable. And what he's doing to people like you, I'm talking about the Prime Minister now, Sheila, it's all kabuki theater. It's all virtue signaling. It's look at all these guns we've banned to make the streets safer. The streets aren't safer. And one of the politicians I have the most contempt for on this file, Sheila, is Bill Blair. Bill Blair was the chief of police for Toronto for several years. If you were to have a heart-to-heart, off-the-record conversation with him, and you say, former Chief Blair, taking all these guns out of circulation from law-abiding Canadians, what's that going to do on the streets of Toronto? You know the answer is zero, zip, zilch. They know that. We know that. Everybody knows that.
He knows who the bad guys are and how the bad guys are getting their guns. And yet he's such a good liberal soldier, just working his way towards that pension, that he doesn't care what he's doing to millions of Canadians. That's the thing here. I'm not special in this. There are more Canadians who are licensed to hold firearms than play organized hockey in this country. Hunting and sports shooting is the national sport by the numbers. We just don't like to talk about it because you know what happens every time we talk about it? Liberals come and take our guns. Yeah. So we do it quietly, but it is the national sport. It's part of the Canadian culture. But people don't realize that unless they live outside of downtown Toronto, where their only exposure to guns is recidivist gangsters shooting up playgrounds. Yeah. They don't realize that it is a very normal thing in the rest of the country, in suburbia, even in the larger cities, to own firearms, to go hunting on the weekend, because I think in the rest of the country, we're not that far disconnected from rural Canada. A lot of people are only 1 or 2 generations away from the farm in the rest of the country. And, but when the population is seated in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, all you need is buy-in from those people.
Yeah. No, you're right. There is a big country mouse, city mouse thing going on here, Sheila. But at the end of the day, if you spoke to the downtown Toronto, the South of Bloor people, or the SOBs, as I like to call them, do you really think this gun grab, do you really think that going after Saskatchewan duck farmers is going to change anything in the Jane Finch corridor, for example? Even those people, if they were speaking honestly, it has to be, no, this is all optics. So why are we doing this? And you know, what I'm wondering about, Sheila, and you probably have better knowledge about this than me, that what is this going to do to like gun stores and gun clubs? What's that?
It's leveling them.
Yeah.
Right now they were left with stranded assets from the last 2 bans that happened with the stroke of a pen. They're bringing in assets and ammunition. They end up stranded in their store. So they've got money invested in this product that they can no longer sell. When you are taking your inventory, your possible sales of your inventory from this down to this, what does that do to anybody? And people end up of 2 minds, right? They end up running out to a gun store. Nothing sends me to a gun store like Liberals musing about a ban. But on the flip side, a lot of people say, I'm not going to buy something. I'm not going to spend $1,000 and another $300 customizing it to make it look cool for Justin Trudeau to offer me $250 after he bans it. And good luck getting ammunition from it. For it. If I own it, but I can't transfer it, then the gun store stop bringing in ammunition. What then, right? So it's just, it's not great. It's destroyed the airsoft community, by the way.
Airsoft.
Because airsoft, that's being, seriously harmed by all of this because they're going after replica guns. It's so stupid. Again, I say it's just like if somebody like a space alien who had never seen a car was writing the rules of the road. That's what's happening.
That's a great analogy. And I think this even got a mention on Tucker Carlson tonight, Sheila. Wasn't there one gun on the list of banned? And it's a gun that I think the word butt is in it, and maybe maximizer, but there's only one known gun in existence of this type. It's basically a goof, as I understand. Do you know what I'm speaking of here?
Yes. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. They even banned like mock guns.
So how did they get on the list?
Because again, this is just stupid people who are like, that's black, that's cool, that looks fun, let's ban this. For example, they banned a Brazilian-made .22. So just like a plinker, like nothing. They banned a Brazilian-made .22 and a Turkish-made .410 bird gun.
Bird gun.
Literally, maybe you might want to pop off a sparrow with that thing. Like I wouldn't use it to hunt geese or anything, or even a duck. It's a .410. Like it's a little girl's gun. Like a little 8-year-old girl's shotgun. That's a .410. Fun to shoot. They don't hurt your shoulder. But what they were doing, that's what they included in the list of 1,500 guns when they stood on the graves of the Nova Scotia shooting victims to ban 1,500 popular models of Canadian shotguns and firearms. They continued to sneak guns onto that list. So when Justin Trudeau says assault-style weapons, he's literally referring to a .410 little girl's gun. Like this is what you get your daughter when she turns 8 or for her first communion.
You know what, Sheila? But that's a very important point you've raised. What is the definition of an assault-style weapon? Because if that gun you were just talking about meets that benchmark, that's ludicrous.
Right. But that's why they say assault style, and they say assault weapons sometimes because they don't really know what that means. Anything could be an assault, right? I could hit you with my purse and that's an assault. Now I've got an assault style purse. So like they use these vague words because to define the words would point out how ridiculous this is, right? You're calling a 410 bird gun, a Brazilian made 22 that its greatest crime was looking awesome. That's an assault style weapon. The Mini 14 ranch rifle, which, arguably you could shoot a coyote with, but it's more of a badger gun. They banned that too. Again, because it looks cool.
And, I wonder how many gangbangers in the inner city are walking around with Brazilian bird guns.
Yeah, they're walking around with the ranch rifle across their back. Yeah, sure.
I think that would be the greatest thing you could do to lose your street cred. Show up with a gun like that, right?
Yeah. Let's move on to that I was talking, because we're over time, although Efron has allowed us some leeway since this is our first day back. This article in the Vancouver Sun, which I found absolutely disgusting. Oh. Shame on you, Vancouver Sun, for this article.
Yep.
It's about a Missouri inmate, transgender inmate, scheduled to be executed today. Good news is the governor there refused to commute the sentence. So this monster is getting a needle in his arm. And you have to get six full paragraphs into this story. And you never really figure out quite what he did to the poor woman that he murdered. But before they mention her name is Beverly Guntner, by the way. You have to get 6 paragraphs in. It's all about how men can do everything better than women, including being murderers, I guess, because now he's going to be counted as a female execution. But just so you know, with this, and we're supposed to feel bad because of the trauma that this person suffered being a transgender person who literally didn't transition until 3 years ago. So he's been like a woman for 30 seconds. And he had a tough go of it in foster care. And so we're supposed to feel sympathy for this person. And at the initial trial, the jury was not unanimous on whether or not he should face execution. So the judge imposed execution. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm open to being wrong, in Missouri, the jury has to be unanimous. So there was 1 or 2 holdouts, probably 1. Conscientious objector. Probably shouldn't have been on a death penalty case, by the way. But anyway, just so you know what we're dealing with here, they never really tell you in this Vancouver Sun article because it's all about this transgender inmate. And this is a trans inmate. And this is going to be a trans inmate, the first one executed in Missouri. And so we're all supposed to care. I don't, because this person, whether they identify as female now, back when they were a dude, stalked, terrorized, raped, stabbed, strangled to death, and then dumped her body in the Mississippi River, I believe, like it was a bag of garbage. That's what he did to Beverly Guntner. And it was a campaign of harassment. She couldn't leave her building to go to work without a police escort. And somehow this maniac got to her, killed her. And her last hours were just sheer terror. But before even all that, I'm not sure that this person should have been out anyway, because prior to that, he was imprisoned for raping a 14-year-old girl. So this, as I was saying to David before we started, I think this is his final act of misogyny, because he attacked a 14-year-old girl. Beverly Guntner was much older than him, I think 20 years older than him. So it wasn't like he just had an absolute hate, violent hate for women, young ones, old ones. And I hesitate to call a 14-year-old girl a woman. She was not. She was a child. But his hate for womankind spans the ages. And this, I think, is his final act of misogyny. that he will be counted as an execution as a woman.
No, I think you're right, Sheila. And I think the idea, I'm reading the headline here, transgender Missouri inmate scheduled to be executed Tuesday. Why do you need to put the word transgender in there in the first place? Murder is murder. No,
Yeah,
whether it's a male, a male pretending to be a female pretending to be a male, murder is murder. And I got the vibe, Sheila, and I might be wrong, but this was the vibe I was getting because I was reading about this on the weekend too in our local media. It's almost as though there's a suggestion in the text that because this person is transgender, it's not a matter of equal rights anymore, but special rights, that we have to look at this case of first-degree murder in a different sort of lens way because this person is transgender. And I say, what does genitalia have to do with it? What does sexual identity or sexual expression have to do with it? If this person is guilty of first-degree murder and the penalty is death, so be it. I mean, that was the vibe I was getting, Sheila, and I think it's awful that we're going down this route, that it's not a matter anymore of transgender people having equal rights, but of having, like I said earlier, special rights.
I don't know why any of us should care that this evil monster is going to meet his well-deserved end. The only thing that I find objectionable about his death is that it took so long. 19 years. Yeah. But yeah, if we look at the subheadline here, the execution scheduled for Tuesday would be the first of an openly transgender woman in the United States.
So what?
Yeah, who cares? But by these people's metrics, Ed Gein would have been transgender because he liked to, dress up in women's clothes. They just keep moving the bar. And again, I don't know why I care about how this person identifies, and or why the state had to pay for 3 years of medical transition, so that this person could be counted as a woman who was executed. That's how it'll go down.
You're 100% right. It's just amping up. I think the story goes back to 5 years ago, 2018, maybe 2017, Sheila, where remember, and there's all kinds of memes on the internet, Macho Man, the guy at a GameStop store, I think it was in Tennessee, who was misgendered, the clerk, who was not trying to create any trouble, but calling a person who's obviously a male as sir, and he freaks out, puts out all kinds of verbal abuse against everybody, kicks a display over, and there we go. There's look at that disgrace. And the media fallout from that, Sheila, was what is it like to be misgendered, and blah 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 blah. It was always playing the sympathy card on his behalf, and then you do a little digging and oopsie, looks like this guy has a record as long as your arm, including violent crime like armed robbery. This is an ex-con, a very violent, belligerent one at that. And because this guy wears earrings and dyes his hair, we're supposed to, and wears pink shoes, evidently, we're supposed to feel sorry for him for being misgendered. Give me a break.
Yeah, none of this is justified. And as I look at this, I just see a lot of unrestrained testosterone still just flying around in that body. We should move ahead because we're way over time, as we tend to be. We have one last clip of Justin Trudeau getting the business on the street. Is that how that goes, Efron? He needs 5 seconds to key it up. But it sounds like this was from a CTV, is this CTV interview with Justin Trudeau? And he was confronted by a guy out on the street. And say what you will about how much the left disliked Stephen Harper, and boy, they sure did. But I still think Stephen Harper could walk around on the streets without getting this.
Selfie with Justin Trudeau still has appeal.
Thank you. All right, you're very welcome.
I think that's fake.
People facing significant disruptions that were no fun for a lot of people.
But the anti-vax vibe appears entrenched among some Canadians.
Hi there. Building better. Justin, when are you going to lift all the restrictions?
How do you respond to a gentleman like that who's says that there are restrictions still around? There's still a lot of anger.
What we have to do is try and engage with people as best you can. Try and counter some of the negative narratives, the broken.
Right now?
I suspect he won't really be listening to me, but I'm willing to try. Sir, why don't you come on over? Come on over. Sorry. So, what's your name? You have a first name?
Oh, no, of course not. You weren't even born.
You have a first name?
I do.
What's your first name?
My name's Attila.
Hello, Attila. I'm Justin.
Oh, Jesus. I've never heard of it before.
I'm Justin. Yes. So what is your biggest concern right now?
So my biggest concern is all the restrictions that we have at the borders, the hassles that people have. I was detained coming back from Chicago.
Okay.
And I was made to show
was that?
August.
August, okay. So the restrictions were still in place at that point?
Correct. Are they all gone now?
Most of them are absolutely gone, yes.
And they're going to be gone for good?
But that depends on COVID, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? If the situation comes back, we're going to have to be responding. Every step of the way, we've listened to doctors, we've listened to public health experts.
So my scapegoat.
To do what we can to keep Canadians safe.
So why are Canadians being doctors? People like, let's say, Stephen Malthouse, people like Robert Malone.
Okay.
Why are they being so restricted and shunned?
I don't know those doctors you're talking to. What we focus on is public health experts, pandemic researchers, the kinds of people who actually gave us the recommendations that led Canada to having a far less damaging and deadly pandemic than many places around the world, even as we saw our economy come back stronger.
All right. And you have proof of this? No.
Every step of the way, we'll listen to science and doctors, and that's what we're here to get to it.
What happened in Ottawa with the truckers was a good thing?
No, it wasn't. It was a very difficult time for citizens of Ottawa, because it was also a difficult time for a lot of people who were worried about their futures across the country.
I was there. It was one of the most...
I'm out of here, man.
There. It was one of the most peaceful places I've ever been to.
Well, you know what? There's an open investigation. There's a level of transparency going on with the Commission that will put out a report on whether you're right or me. Anyway, thank you, sir.
Well, I'll say this, Sheila. He got off lightly. That is the gentleman with the cell phone. When Trudeau said, cross over the street, come over here and talk to me. I thought that was just to get him within range of his Royal Canadian Mounted Henchmen to deliver a beatdown such as the one I, endured 13 months ago just for standing on a corner. But again, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but I think we're looking at a sociopath in the Prime Minister's office, Sheila.
You know, it's interesting where that conversation ended, right? It ended when he started saying, I was actually at Ottawa. And that's when Justin Trudeau's like, oh. And when he started to say it was the most peaceful, and he was probably going to say it was the most peaceful protest that I had ever been to or something along those lines. But that's when Justin Trudeau was like, oh, I can't talk my way out of this because I actually wasn't there. I left for the cottage with COVID again. So yep. That's like right where it ended, because the guy was going to say, look, I was there. What you said was happening isn't true. That's when he had to like cut it because CTV cameras were there too, right?
Unbelievable. Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, that I'm confounding you with logic and facts.
We have, surprisingly, some chats, paid chats. Get to those. Yeah, I'm shocked because I forgot David because I didn't do that until 45 minutes into the show. Boy, I'm rusty today. Let's get to the first one. It's my buddy Mike from Freedom Honey. He's a veteran. He's an advocate for wounded vets, and boy, this medical assistance and dying being offered to veterans sure makes him mad. Anyways, Mike says, welcome back to the live stream. Thanks again for covering the Veterans Offered Maid story. You guys are the best. Well, thanks, Mike. We will keep covering that because I think it is one of the worst things Justin Trudeau has ever done. because he's directly in charge. And they're just, Lawrence Macaulay, if you're watching, and you might be because you're hate watching, you're lying through your teeth. These veterans have the receipts. Google. Okay, let's keep going. There's that man between him and Bill Blair. I don't think they're stupid. I think they're awful. Like there's Omar Al-Jabra. I think he's not very bright. Catherine McKenna, dumb, really dumb. There's some real runners for the dumbest Liberal MP out there, right? Like the field is thick. But for the worst individuals, Bill Blair, Mendocino, and Lawrence Macaulay, the Veterans Affairs Minister, you guys are the worst, the absolute worst. I don't know where your souls went, but they are not in your bodies anymore. Atomot, is this Adam Ottawa? Maybe it is. $5. Happy New Year. Hope my two favorite rebels had a very Merry Christmas holiday season. Thank you for returning to your noon hour news. The only news worthy to be watched. Oh, that's great. Thanks, guys. Billy Howard gives us $2. I heard at least one Alberta CPC MP may cross the floor to the Maverick Party. I'm not so sure about that. If true, what are your thoughts on going into an election with this sitting Maverick MP? Look, I'm very sympathetic to the Maverick Party. I just haven't heard about any Conservative MPs crossing the floor to the Mavericks. I'd be excited to see it, quite frankly. I think the Conservative Party needs an opposition to the right, but also specifically with Alberta's interests at heart, since so much of the Conservative base and fundraising is here. The Conservative Party often treats Albertans and Westerners the same way the Liberals, the federal government treats us, and that is just as a colony from which they can take all their money to do all the things that they want to do, and then they really don't care about us, or they sell us up the river with things like Aaron O'Toole agreeing with the gun ban, or Alan Ray's, the former, I think he's former Conservative MP, maybe, I don't know what happened to him, but Alan Ray's supporting internet censorship, or Andrew Scheer whipping the party on the Paris Agreement after campaigning against it, or Aaron O'Toole's version of a carbon tax. They're happy to say that, like they stand for the things that Westerners believe in. And so we're just like, where do we send that fundraising check? And so, you know what? I'd be happy to see a Conservative MP cross the floor to the Mavs, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen.
Sheila, by the way, since you are living out in Wild Rose country, it seems to me not a week goes by where I don't hear of a poll basically saying that Notley is headed back as premier this year. I think your election is in May, correct me if I'm wrong. And I mean, to me, that sounds so incredible. One need only read your superb book, The Destroyers, to know what they're getting when you have Rachel Notley in charge. Is there any merit to this polling, Sheila?
I don't know. I don't trust it. I'm not sure. I just don't think that Albertans are willing to make that same mistake and level the economy just as things are starting to pick back up. I don't see it. I mean, the oil patch is like, we're headed into a real boom right now, after just such a terrible dry spell. And, we're becoming this incredibly, lively place to live, this freedom-minded place where we're poaching all the young people from all across the country. Like we have our Alberta is Calling ads that are up in the TTC in Toronto. Because this is an affordable place to be. I mean, a young person can make an average salary and live a really good life here. And I can't see Albertans choosing to derail that again by choosing Rachel Notley, although we did go mad that one time. And I say we as a collective, Alberta, Edmonton, and parts of Calgary, and not, rural Alberta. So I don't know. I mean, it's a real concern. I'm optimistic about my fellow Albertans. So I don't know. But boy, I don't know if you saw it, but I should mention it. I did comment on it on my social media. The Photoshop those NDPers are doing to Rachel Notley's face. The
claws are coming out.
There are you look at this like ad, and it's like an ad that's sponsored by the NDP. So I found it on somebody else's paid or their feed, but it's sponsored by the NDP. And they have damn near photoshopped Rachel Notley's nose off to try to smooth out her skin. And I didn't wear enough sunscreen when I was younger either. It's whatever. You can't roll back the hands of time, right? Like, eat better, try to undo the damage you did. Like, eat lots of animals. It'll do wonders for your hair, skin, and nails. But look at this.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that's Rachel Notley in that photo?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
come on. She's
And then-
unrecognizable.
And look, like, it's so bad. And then look at the picture they chose of Danielle Smith. Like, that's
I know.
like I say this as someone who is congenitally unphotogenic. Like, it is a birth defect. I cannot take a good picture. My life depended on it.
Oh, that's
Everyone's
not
like,
true.
No, it is true. My headshots don't even look like me in real life. People meet me in the world and they're like, you look a lot better in person. I know. So I'm familiar with not being able to take a good photo. So that is a really bad photo of Danielle Smith, who does take a good photo, by the way, and she looks great for her age. She looks wonderful for her age. Rachel Notley is whatever age she is, and she does look a certain way. And if you look at other unairbrushed photos from like CP or the Edmonton Journal or whatever, I can't even believe they thought they were going to get away with this. Like,
Sheila,
look at her neck and then look at her neck in other photos.
Oh, no, here's the thing. I'm just doing some live brainstorming with you, but maybe one of our Calgary-based Rebel News reporters can do a streeter. You go to the public square, you just take the photo, that photo there, who is allegedly Rachel Notley, and just show that photo to people and say, who is this? And see how many people would say, oh, that's Rachel Notley, or, gee, I don't know, there's something familiar in the eyes and not much else.
Yeah, I don't even think she has that haircut anymore. Like, I don't, again, my hair constantly changes, so I don't know. But Efron, I just put it in the chat that I'm having with you, Efron. A more recent photo of the two of these women, a more flattering photo of our premier, Danielle Smith, and an accurate depiction of Rachel Notley at a podium. And this is the photo used by the it's CTV News. But so not a conservative, just zoom it way up if you can. So that's Rachel Notley. And I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't know where the things are.
It reminds me of that line, how much do you charge to haunt a house?
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying you are really, like, you're airbrushing the daylights out of her. And again, these people tell me they're feminists and a woman's place is in the legislature. Okay, well, that means we get to look however we look. And if you are a woman of a certain age who maybe spent a little bit too much time outside in the sun, you do look a certain way. I'm one of them. Like, I'm not being mean. I'm one of them. But like, where are the feminists to say this is unnecessary? This is sexism. But no, they're the ones doing it. Anyway, I should just move on, but I just noticed, like, it was just such a joke. I was just like, do you think we've never seen the woman before? Like, she's all over the place. We know what she looks like. Okay, let's keep going. Donald Photography, before I get the live stream canceled forever on our first day back. Billy Howard. No, sorry, you read Billy's. Donald Photography, 30, $1. Hi, Rebel. It's Donald. Happy New Year. I'm great. Well, F Trudeau and F Biden. I'm still in Oshawa, Toronto area. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's. Can't say that. Aaron O'Toole is going to get you kicked off the internet. What is he campaigning for? Like, isn't he in the Ottawa area? Why is he campaigning in Toronto?
Oh,
to the wine moms.
Talk about yesterday's man.
Who else would be impressed by that Substack article? Toronto wine moms, right?
Let's all be nice, kids.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're all caught up. I think we finally got to the end. We started late and we went late, even though Efron was very clear. We're going to keep it tight, only an hour. And
well, it's been so long, hasn't it? Well, Sheila, so good to be reunited with you, Peaches and Herb style here in 2023. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. A special thank you to those who contributed a few bucks. That's how we keep these lights on. We don't get handouts like the mainstream media does. So we greatly appreciate that. There will be two
one more thing
other...
before we go. Yes, one more thing before we go. There's going to be two other Rebels. Efron, what's the time that we're running the show tomorrow? Same or different? Okay, so it's at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So 1 p.m.
Eastern?
Yes.
Eastern. Okay, then.
So
tomorrow, 1 p.m. with a couple of other guests. In the meantime, folks, as always, stay safe and stay sane.
You